If you're watching this, I'm already dead. No, I'm just kidding. We got college football. Very excited for you guys to join us on the Saturday special. We are joined again by one of our favorite guys. It went so well the first time, we thought we'd bring him back. He was kindly enough to oblige us from the Gojo Show, DraftKings, Mike Golic Jr., MGJ. That's how it is right there, right? MGJ, how's it going?
That's actually what Marcus Spears calls me all the time, so I appreciate that. And I'm going to take the weird, morbid start to this as an homage to the new Knives Out movie that just dropped the preview.
It is.
I don't know if you guys are as jacked up for that as I am, but it's John Wick levels of... There's a second one coming out. It's called like The Glass Onion, a Knives Out movie, and it's John Wick levels of buy-in from me. I will blindly see whatever Knives Out franchise puts out because it's that good.
Sometimes you got to go all in. I'm more excited about Blood and Honey, the horror story about Winnie the Pooh that's come out. What's amazing, when you put copyright in the public domain, what can happen? They took that one down a dark.
You talked about Tarantino films on the show today. We can turn this into
it's been one of those.
Well, that's you're a film critic.
Look,
I mean,
we can really dive down into it.
We should probably ask him if he likes the other guys or not.
Yeah, David.
Mike,
he doesn't like the other guys.
Jr., do you like the other guys?
You don't like the other guys?
That's what I'm saying, Mike. We've been saying that for months.
He's the only one.
I'll see myself out.
It's one of the most underrated comedies in the last 2 decades.
He said overrated.
He said underrated, David. You know what? I don't even want to justify it.
It's not funny.
I don't even want to justify it.
Who hurt you?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm fine being on an island, but I will say this.
Show me on the doll where Mark Wahlberg.
I will say this. I watched it with my father-in-law, Richard Todd, on my second viewing. He laughed from the first frame to the last frame.
I'm telling you, it's classic.
Every joke was, he's like, Dave, come on, you got to think that's funny.
Oh, you are the curmudgeon we all love.
Mike Golic Jr., Taylor Lewan, nobody will back me up on this. It's not the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah, you're wrong. Like, that's why. At some point, look around and see who your allies are. And when you have none, maybe you assess things.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. It's fine
right.
being on an island until one day it's Shutter Island.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's right. Or you're Tom Hanks. But anyway, Mike, I want to start off last week. Unbelievable. From a range of results, from upsets to beatdowns, to just good finishes and good football in general. I think it's one of the best week ones that I've ever seen. What are some superlatives that you kind of took from it?
Yeah, I think certainly best moral victory, and I know I've had to hear this from everyone talking about the Notre Dame-Ohio State game, but I will say, while that team won't take it away from that, Notre Dame's big game hang-up is usually at the end of the season. I'm excited to see how they use that for the rest of the year. Normally, they lose and then they go into the offseason and you can hang the final score around the weight room and do all that stuff. Now we're hearing from Marcus Freeman about the offense is going to get more aggressive because they had to turtle it up to try and go up against that team and make it happen. I'll say, though, most surprising result from the opening weekend, I wasn't ready for Georgia's offense to look that good against an Oregon defense that's got 5-star talent all over the place. Noah Sewell's expected to be an NFL guy. Dan Lanning brings over a scheme that was incredibly productive during his time at Georgia. And they just got physically mauled in a way I wasn't ready for. I'm a voter and one of the guys in the group for the Joe Moore Award, which goes out yearly to the best offensive line unit in college football. And Georgia's O-line had a remarkable opening stanza. They were body bagging dudes 20 and 30 yards down the field on any given game. So they were one of my playoff picks, surprise, surprise, going into the season. But they look uniquely ready to defend it with maybe the best tight end room in college football this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny, we've talked about this a lot. You know, last year going into the season with JT, you thought maybe this would be Georgia kind of catching up to the times offensively the way that Saban did when he kind of not abandoned, but realized, you know, to stay on top, you have to be somewhat malleable. We've got to open up the offense a little bit. Then all of a sudden, JT gets hurt. Your wide receiver room is just a battle of attrition. Your defense is a once in a generation. So they kept it pretty close to the vest, ended up working out, and they won it. But it seemed to me like you had a mixture. I mean, you're going to go a lot of 12 personnel with that tight end room. I mean, hell, 13 personnel with them's as dangerous as anybody with what you can do with putting Brock outside, putting Arik outside, who he'll continue to get better. Darnell Washington's typically your hand on the end of the line tight end, was a tackle that was converted. But just from a play calling standpoint and being aggressive early in downs, plus Stetson Bennett looked like to me that he's a guy that is playing with no fear.
Yep.
Why would you have fear? You're already the hero. Your name will be engraved forever. Now you can just let it loose. And we talked with John Parker Wilson about this during the week. It's not saying you play like you don't care, but but now you're playing freer. We always say the best players don't think, they just react. So seeing that from Georgia, to me, is an evolution that could lead to a revolution when it comes down to them being able to take over that mantle once Saban leaves or if Alabama somehow falls off. Because all Kirby has done has built an Alabama team in Athens when you look at them physically 1 through 85. And, oh, yeah, the walk-ons are pretty jacked and tan, too.
I mean, you had Ladd McConkey, a name who sounds like he should be a two-way midfielder on a lacrosse field, out here remixing dudes on end-arounds routinely in this game. You're right. Georgia is playing free. As Spencer Hall has pointed out, Stetson Bennett knows he is going to be able to slang merch at car dealerships around the greater Athens and Georgia area for the rest of his life as a made man. Yes. Which is coming back, by the way.
I know. We've already talked about that and got super duper excited about it.
That one is funny.
I'll lower the price of the bat,
funny.
But I'm not moving on the baby pillow.
Exactly. La Flama Blanca.
All right, around the country, we talked about Ohio State, talked about Alabama, the way they looked, the way that Georgia looked. Florida and Anthony Richardson, again, like I said, there's a lot of quarterbacks that walk around with potential. There are a lot of human beings, and then there are what Anthony Richard could possibly be. Just really quickly, watching that guy, if he puts it all together, he will be as good as anybody can possibly be. He's a created player.
So I was on call for that game on national radio with Learfield Audio this past weekend, and the wild part about that game is Utah still got what they wanted on offense. Utah did not play bad offensively. Defensively, you're replacing Devin Lloyd and some really good D linemen. I think it's going to take some time for the meat of that defense to be able to live up to what they had last year. Back end, they still got dudes, but what you saw so early was, I think, the difference Billy Napier's offense makes for a guy like Anthony Richardson. He's so tailor-made for what we saw Levi Lewis do at Louisiana in that offense for 4 years under Billy Napier. And so now you come in and you can turn this athlete loose. The middle of your offensive line with Princely Egwalkin at center, who's a veteran guy for them. Osiris Torrance came over from Louisiana and was a preseason second-team All-American. I was most impressed with how they played bully ball up front. They did. And then Anthony Richardson was able to clutch gene this thing at the end. The pirouette play is going to be the one we play on the reel if he ends up realizing a lot of these dark horse Heisman dreams. But I think them versus Kentucky this weekend becomes really interesting because Will Levis is looking around at a totally different world.
No Wandale.
No Wandale, no Chris Rodriguez right now for these first handful of games, an offensive line that lost Darian Kennard and a couple of other NFL guys last year, and the coordinator in Liam Cohen that when you talk to, I did their game last year against Vanderbilt, and I was on the flight home with Will Levis's parents. They were from Connecticut, where I was living at the time, and they talked about what that connection between Liam and Will was like, how much that coordinator had meant to Will Levis's development as a guy who was an incredible athlete going back to his time briefly at Penn State, but certainly wows everyone at Kentucky. So I think two really similar teams. I just wonder if right now, injury-wise and what Kentucky lost from last year to this year, if Florida has a pretty good opportunity to make another splash in week 2 this weekend.
Yeah, they do. You talk about jumping up to number 12. You beat the number 20 team at home, and you got to win over number 7 and number 20, even though it's at home. Florida's going to continue to rise. All right. Want to kind of go through these a little bit rapid fire, Mike, if that's all right with you. BYU, 3-point favorite now on DraftKings. Everybody go to DraftKings. Use promo code BOOSTER. They're a 3-point favorite against Baylor at home. I got them at -2.5. Do you think it's worth buying down that half point, getting BYU -2.5, and riding with the fear?
I don't know, man. There's part of me, I'm so weirded out by this game. And I understand BYU brought back as much talent. I think SP plus wise, Bill Connolly's metric over at ESPN, they're one of the most experienced teams in college football. We know offensive line wise what they bring to this table, but man, I really like the core of what Baylor brought back. I understand new young quarterback taking over there, but there's something about this that smells weird to me, man. So I'm looking at this and I still think Baylor goes in and manages to pull this off, but I understand why everyone's buying BYU in this opportunity.
Yeah, you look at Puka Nacua too. How healthy is he with that ankle? He was their big play guy early, but again, BYU, you got a bunch of 30-year-old men that are having to pay the mortgage. I just believe in it. It's one of my non-conference scheduling rules. Never schedule a school that is based off of religion. Yeah. Nobody plays harder than those fighting for the afterlife. Second one, here I got for you, MGJ. Texas State -13.5 at home against FIU. FIU struggled to beat Bryant. No, not the basketball team with Haru, the great white ninja that they had last year. It was dropping like 35 a game. This is Bryant, the football team.
One guy.
How can Texas State not beat one guy by 14 points?
Yeah, Texas State, who, by the way, I think a year ago in the recruiting cycle was a team that went entirely on transfers once the portal opened up. They didn't sign a single high school prospect. Yes, they have essentially become a JUCO. I'm totally with you on this one. Pause all the way down. My friend Billy Gill over at the Levitard Show, I'm sorry, but I hadn't remembered Bryant had a football team until going back to when I was in high school. One of my buddies had an offer from there. I thought it had gone by the wayside. And so, yeah, I think they've got to be able to go ahead and take down a team that almost lost to a football team I forgot existed.
Yep. All right, y'all want to throw one his way real quick?
All right, let's do it real quick here. Let's go to your alma mater, Notre Dame. Good showing in the first week despite the loss, plus 20.5 versus Marshall. They covering, yes or no?
Minus 20.5.
Minus 20.5, yes.
Minus 20.5, and yes, I think they do cover. I think if you're offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, you've been used to getting grief from the Notre Dame fan base since you were a player. And I think not only with that, hearing that and wanting to remind people, hey, you know how to call a little bit of offense, but I think really the goal for them this game is going to be get Tyler Buckner a bunch of opportunities to try and air it out downfield. Marshall was a bowl team last year. They come in with a great running back. I understand the reasons to be excited about that team, but I think this Notre Dame defense showed it is for real. That back end is faster than we've seen in South Bend in quite some time. And I think offensively, there's going to be a lot more shot plays built into this as this team and this offense take a step forward in their development this season.
Yep, no Grant Wells either.
Iowa State, would I be crazy to get if I could get the under at 44.5? There's no way they score more than 15 points.
No, I mean, Guy, I'll be amazed if this game gets into double digits. I'm sorry. Iowa State devoid of everything we've come to know of offense on that team. And Iowa, like, I understand Brian Ferris came out and had to act like he was disappointed in the result of this game. You can't tell me deep down in sick parts of that Iowa offensive meeting room that they're not just sitting in there going, we can make 7 even weirder next week. We'll find some sort of 2-point conversion return. We'll do whatever it takes to create 7 like a weird, sick, sadistic blackjack deal.
That's exactly.
So yes, the under is absolutely in play.
They'll be the first team to score 1 point, not be the extra point. But Mike, we really appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find the Gojo Show, and would love to have you on again soon.
Absolutely. We'd love to come back, guys. Appreciate it. You can check us out wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all those fun places. We're on YouTube now. Go to the DraftKings YouTube channel. Check out the Gojo with Mike Golic Jr. playlist. And if you're in the listening mood this weekend, I am on the road on the call for Learfield Audio for the Oklahoma State and Arizona State game in Stillwater. Tons of points up for grabs in that game. Spencer Sanders and the Cowboys were lighting it up in week 1. Can't wait for that.
Definitely. Mike, we appreciate it. Everybody go check out the Gojo Show. Hit the like and subscribe button. Enjoy your football watching. Enjoy your Saturday.